Deception or persuasion? Which do you use? This is a really confusing topic in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. The whole social structure and social interaction in Dungeons & Dragons can get really complicated, convoluted, and confusing. I am going to try to break this down a tiny bit here on the vlog today. And before I get into that, really quickly, I just want to thank those of you that have joined me on this quest. I started, this is 214 days ago, I started this quest to become a better dungeon master and a better player. And for those of you that have been coming along for this ride for a while, like Laser Samurai and the rest of you, thank you so much. And to those of you that are new here and have just subscribed recently, thank you as well for joining me. Every day I'm gonna be here talking about Dungeons & Dragons and other RPGs and trying to share my insights, my something like wisdom, I don't know if we could call it that, but the experiences I've had through the years and the experiences I'm having right now as we play in the games that are ongoing every week. So if you're interested in D&D tips, tricks, and fun facts, stick around because we got all that kind of stuff and more. And I want to suggest also stick around to the end of the videos because generally speaking, I make some conclusions at the end of each of the sort of topics that I address, as well as usually there's funny, goofy outtakes of me being me at the end, especially when I make mistakes recording these videos, so stick around for those, otherwise you're missing out on all the fun. All right, so let's dig into this right here. We have, basically you have the fundamental elements of the current social dynamic in trying to convince others of going your way. Now, I'm only going to speak about deception and persuasion today. There is, of course, the third, which is intimidation. I think I will probably take intimidation by itself at another time because today I really want to look at maybe the finer points of deception versus persuasion, and here's why. Last night, our game, We Out Here, was awesome. We had lots of fun. We also brought on board a new player. So now we have 4 players. It's a nice, balanced, rounded group. And oh my goodness, I am so used to playing with like the murder hobo groups. Not entirely, but like, let's just say that by and large, they're murder hobos that like to role play a little bit. So generally speaking, they're probably gonna kill everything that gets in their way, but at the same time, they like engaging and they won't necessarily kill everything that gets in their way. That's kind of what I've been accustomed to through most of the games I've been running over the last couple years. This group, however, is completely the opposite. They're pretty much like when they're in a fight, they do great. However, these characters, if they can avoid it, they don't want to fight. They'd much rather like talk their way out of things, at least so far from what we've seen. Of course, we're only a few sessions in, but so far it's been awesome, and it's a huge challenge for me as a DM not having like years and years of experience behind the screen to draw upon in these situations. And so when I look at deception and persuasion, here's how I break it down in my mind. To me, deception is going to be used when the character is trying to do something that is dishonest in some way. And it could be minor and it could be major. They could be just flat out lying. Okay, that's obviously deception. They could also be trying to disguise or hide the truth, I think. So even if they're sort of being honest, like let's say for instance, I've put on a disguise and I am trying to play myself off as, let's say, an NPC, even if the words that are coming out of my mouth might be truthful, the moment it occurs is a deception because I'm not actually that person. And so in this case, this is what I sort of did last night. What I'm ruling in that kind of a case is that, well, you're trying to deceive this person. You're trying to convince them that you're who you say you are, even if you're using their voice, even if you've used a disguise or a spell to make yourself look exactly the way they look or sound exactly the way they sound. The problem is, in that case, you don't know what that person's character is. Whereas someone that they are familiar with might know them really well. So I'm Gregory. If you watch any of my vlogs, I tend to be animated. I tend to be, I put a lot of emotion and passion into what I say. Even when I speak calmly, I definitely still have a certain way of being. So if somebody all of a sudden looked like me and talked like me, but they came at you and they were talking to you like this, would you believe that it was really Gregory talking to you? Hi friends, thanks and welcome to the vlog. That doesn't work! That's not who I am, and you know that because you've been watching this. And even if this is your first time watching me on the vlog, you can already tell I'm an animated guy. I use lots of gestures because, whatever, I'm Italian or something, I don't know, but I talk with my hands and I always have and I probably always will. That being said, somebody trying to convince you that they are me better be talking with their hands, they better be animated and excitable, or you're probably not going to believe them. And so, again, back to the point, in this case, in my opinion, deception is the skill that you're going to use. Now, let's move to the other side and look at persuasion. Persuasion is, generally speaking, when you are being friendly, you're being helpful, you're being sincere, and you want to sort of move someone towards your ideal. Move them away from the thing that you don't want them to do and move them towards the thing you do want them to do. In this case, theoretically, you could be lying. It's possible. Lies could come into persuasion. But I think, generally speaking, persuasion is more about using your personality in ways that are meant to shift a person in the position they're in. You're trying to shift them from either making a decision contrary to what you want or shift them in a position that's going to is going to be beneficial to you. Basically, that's kind of how I see persuasion. So it's like you're having a conversation with someone and they're reluctant to give you what you want. It could be an item, it could be information, etc. And you're using your personality, your words, your manner of being to say, like, come on, give me the goods. This won't hurt you. This will be, look, I'm going to use that information for everyone's benefit, that kind of thing. When you're doing that, in my mind, that's when you're being persuasive. And it could, depending on the character, it could come in many different forms. You can just be very calm and very convincing and sincere. Again, sincerity really helps, I think. So there's this whole thing about charisma. And what is charisma? Why is it even a statistic? See, one of the things I think that's a challenge for us, regardless of whether we're a player or a DM, it kind of comes down to one of the same things, and this is how I see it. We used to only have one trait or stat, one ability that we used in social situations. It was charisma, and that's it. If you were trying to convince someone, whether you were trying to be deceptive, persuasive, or just downright intimidating, whatever you were trying to do to use the force of your personality, all you had was charisma. And so you made a charisma check. And if you were successful, you were successful. If you failed, you failed. And then you dealt with the consequences. That's how it used to be. Well, here, now in 5th edition, we have these more subtle skills, which is very interesting because I think the intention is that some people are going to be better at moving a person from somewhere negative to somewhere positive. Salesman, I mean, this is kind of like the quintessential thing. If you're a salesperson, your skill is persuasion. You have to be able to convince people that what you're telling them, what you're selling them, is worth their attention. Whereas others are going to be really good at deception. They're going to be lying to you to your face, and you won't know whether or not they're telling you the truth. And maybe they're masters of disguise. I mean, think about like that rogue that has the ability to disguise themselves as different people and do the voices and plays it off in a convincing manner. They're not trying to persuade you to their side. They're literally trying to trick your ass. They're trying to deceive you. And this is how I see it. This is how I broke it down last night. And I'm open to debate. If you have a different idea about this, by all means, I'd love to hear about it. This is how I see it. And so deception, in my opinion, is all about trickery and our ability to sort of remain calm and not trip up over our own BS, to be honest. That's kind of where deception lies in 5th edition for me. And persuasion is more about how convincing you are in your attempt to move someone toward your side, like to bring them over to your camp, I think. I mean, this is how I perceive the difference between deception and persuasion. And I think it's really important. And, we can get tripped up when we're building a character, or even in the moment, in the heat of a game, and we might make mistakes. Maybe a DM makes a bad call and uses one instead of the other. It's the same thing with perception versus investigation on a certain level, which is a whole other topic we'll cover in another video. But you get the point. So there's always ways to look at this, that it could be this way and it could be that way. And I recommend, if you're a player, ask your DM flat out, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. And then let your DM make the ruling in the moment. And then if it's a big deal after the game, have a longer conversation about it. Same thing if you're a DM and you can see clearly that your player is struggling and you know that they have a really high persuasion stat, let's say. Yes, we're talking about this, right? Of course. Yeah, a lot of this comes from the game last night. And yes, Dane, I mean, I get it. If your persuasion is high and you tend to be that way, and I, as the DM, am maybe misinterpreting, I think as the DM, I think it's my responsibility on a certain level at the right time when I can see, like, well, okay, maybe something's not going the way the player expects it to or wants it to. I should be asking. I should be like, well, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do here in this moment? Because maybe you were trying to be persuasive, but the way it came across at the table, I took it the other way as the DM, and that's okay. I mean, communication is a challenge. It's a skill that needs to be developed. I have definitely talked about communication and the importance of it in D&Dailies way back, like from the early D&Dailies, I was talking about the importance of communication. And this is true in this case for sure. So communicate with your DM. If you're the DM, communicate with the players to make sure you're understanding, or just say, I'm choosing this right now because blank, And I'm choosing this right now because you're lying to the person, so it's deception. That should be all that's necessary. And I think that is all that's necessary. And I think that if we look at it that way, where deception is when you're trying to convince someone of something that is not true, be it large or small, whereas persuasion is trying to bring someone over to your way of seeing things, I think if you just keep it that way, separated that way, it'll probably make a lot more sense. Tell me what you think, And wow, we are like flying through. Yesterday was amazing. The video yesterday was hugely well received, and I mean, lots of views is what I mean by that. And by the way, wow, Matt Colville retweeted the video yesterday, which felt super cool. So thank you. Yes, retweets and shares and all of that stuff, even likes, are immensely helpful when you're trying to build a YouTube channel and share your ideas with everyone out there. You all are awesome. I'm so grateful that you join me every day. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Keep rolling 20s, and remember, it's your game. Play your way. However, these guys don't want to fight. If they can avoid it, these characters don't want to fight. Okay.